Good afternoon. I am Colonel Brian White, Commander of the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office Law Enforcement Bureau. This afternoon, I will be providing an update regarding the fatal officer-involved shooting that occurred on the morning of Thursday, July 24th at the Wichita Police Department Patrol North Substation located at 3015 East 21st Street North. I'll begin with the timeline events from that morning and explain the responsibilities of the Advanced Law Enforcement Response Team known as ALERT. ALERT is a combined effort consisting of detectives with the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office and the Wichita Police Department charged with investigating these types of incidents. It's important to note that that ALERT is tasked with conducting a thorough criminal investigation. Their role is to gather facts and present them to the district attorney for a legal review. ALERT does not conduct administrative reviews related to department policy, nor do they make determinations about whether the officers followed proper procedures or internal protocols. Data from emergency radio traffic, body-worn camera footage, cameras at the Patrol North substation, and the investigative process piece together the following sequence of events. On the morning of July 24th at 6:32 a.m., a Wichita police officer assigned to the Patrol North Bureau stood outside the substation located at 3015 East 21st Street North, preparing to end his shift, when Nehemiah Flemming, a 19-year-old black male from Wichita, approached him. Before the officer could start a conversation, another male approached Flemming and tried to persuade him to walk away from the officer. Flemming became agitated, pushed the other individual away, and walked back towards the officer. The second individual then walked away, leaving Flemming behind. Flemming asked the officer a question about black males carrying firearms. As the officer explained that carrying a firearm was not illegal, Flemming pulled a black handgun from his pocket, placed it on the hood of a nearby patrol vehicle, and he asked the officer what he was going to do about it. While the gun rested on the hood of the patrol vehicle, Flemming kept his grip on it. We have a photograph of the Axon camera here of the officer that was engaged in this conversation with Mr. Flemming. You can see the firearm that's placed on the hood of the patrol car. The officer then reached for the gun, and Flemming immediately pulled the gun off the hood of the patrol car and pointed it directly at the officer. Only 2 seconds passed between the moment Flemming produced the handgun and when he aimed it at the officer. So we have a second photograph here where the officer that is directly in front of Flemming is the one that was engaged in this conversation. It's a little difficult to see in this photograph, but you can see in Flemming's right hand the handgun that we had just shown in the previous slide, and he is pointing it in the direction of this officer who is taking evasive action to get away from Flemming. Fearing he was about to be shot, the officer dove for cover behind a parked vehicle with the gun still aimed at the officer. Flemming backed away, kept his finger on the trigger. So we have an additional photograph here. As you can see, Flemming is pointing the handgun at the direction of the officer. As this unfolded, a second officer who had just arrived to begin his shift saw Flemming pointing the gun at the first officer. The second officer moved behind the cover of a patrol vehicle and fired 3 rounds from his duty-issued handgun at Flemming. After the officer fired, Flemming ran into the parking lot and back toward the east. A third officer inside the substation heard the commotion outside. He came out, saw Flemming running with the handgun still in his hand, which is again this photograph here, and fired 2 rounds from his duty-issued handgun at Flemming. Flemming was struck once by the officers that fired. Flemming never fired his weapon. At 6:35:09, officers requested EMS and fire and reported shots fired. The 3 original officers and several additional officers began providing care to Flemming. At 6:36:02, just under 1 minute, Sedgwick County EMS arrived once they had been called, and took over medical care. They transported Flemming to a nearby hospital in extremely critical condition where doctors pronounced him dead at 6:57 a.m. As per our agreement with the Wichita Police Department, alert activated, and the Sheriff's Office assumed responsibility for investigating the shooting. The investigative process includes conducting multiple interviews and collecting evidence, including camera footage from the area. Based on the investigations, detectives learned that Flemming suffered from mental health issues and had revealed to others his intention to have police shoot him. Investigators recovered the handgun Flemming had produced, which we showed you in these photographs. The gun is a Ruger 9mm EC9 with 1 round chambered in the gun, ready to fire, and 6 additional rounds in the magazine. The Sheriff's Office will present the facts surrounding the officer-involved shooting to the Sedgwick County District Attorney for review. The Sheriff's Office does not determine justification, only presents the facts. I'll take any questions that you may have.
So you never did fire the gun then?
What's that?
Flemming never did fire the gun then?
Flemming never fired the gun.
What training does the officers have when it comes to suicide by police?
So there's a number of different trainings that law enforcement will get introduced to over the course of the academy and then over the course of their career as it unfolds. And really if you boil it down to one thing, it's de-escalation. So what you're trying to do is defuse the situation, and that's what happened in this situation actually, is that when Flemming produced the firearm, he was agitated, and that was observed when he had this interaction with what turned out to be a friend of his that was trying to diffuse the situation and had some awareness, not full awareness, but this friend had some awareness that Flemming was in an agitated state, and then later revealed to us in his interview that he knew that Flemming was armed with a handgun. But the officer was trying to back down things a little bit. So when Flemming said, "What are you going to do about somebody that's armed?" the officer stated quite calmly, "It's not illegal to possess a firearm." So, but only seconds transpired before Flemming escalated this and pointed the firearm, unfortunately, at officers. And as I stated before, he does have some mental health history here, and obviously this is a very tragic incident for Flemming's family and everyone that is associated with him, as well as the law enforcement officers that are involved in this situation. These are difficult situations to deal with in the moment, and they are also tragic for this family and difficult for the officers that are involved. Other questions? Yeah?
Excuse me, sorry.
Sure.
Just walk through the next steps in or following this investigation.
So what we'll do is we will do an in-house kind of review to ensure that our investigative process has been thorough. Once we've had an opportunity to kind of make sure, double check things, then we will present our case to the district attorney's office, and then the district attorney's office will review that case to determine whether there are any laws were broken by the officers that were involved.
So I know you guys do mental health training to try and de-escalate these situations, but this one happened so quick, the officer did what he could. Is there anything he could have done differently?
You know, it's, if you're asking me my personal opinion about the way that this officer managed the situation, I would say no. I'd say that, you always want to go back and kind of think about how you can do things better, and that's part of the Wichita Police Department's processes, as well as ours and other law enforcement agencies. But I think what we'll have to do is take a step back from this after we allow things to kind of settle in on as to what occurred and make sure our fact finding is good, and then double check that and see if there is something that we could have done differently or better. But at face value, at first blush, and kind of understanding what transpired in this particular incident, there's nothing glaring or anything that would stand out about anything that anyone could have done differently.
as far as the officer, how's the officer doing? Was this the first time he ever had to draw his weapon and fire it? And was there any counseling for him? How's he doing?
Sure, yeah, so it's difficult. I briefly met with the officer this morning after he had his interview, and he shook up. But we have processes in place for critical incidents, for our staff to receive mental health counseling, and the Sheriff's Office also has a robust mental health processes for our agency, peer support, things like that, and the Wichita Police Department does as well. So what we've recognized over many decades of dealing with tragic situations that law enforcement has to deal with is that after these things occur, not only, on the front end we have to prepare them for situations like this, but afterwards we also have to make sure that we're taking good care of these employees.
You said you met with the family. What would you tell others who, because you said this was, the family knew that he might do this. What would you tell the public about if somebody in their family has these mental illnesses, about wanting to get deceased by a police officer? What would you tell them to come forward? Just talk to them.
Yeah, sure. I think, we have done some basic review of Mr. Flemming's past. And what I can tell you is the family really tried hard to take care of Mr. Flemming and really tried to identify areas where they could provide him help. And they also reached out to law enforcement on this date to try and communicate to us what was occurring here. But things unfolded very quickly. And as I kind of briefly mentioned, the family and friends surrounding Mr. Flemming in this brief amount of time before this interaction took place, tried to send somebody to locate Mr. Flemming and to kind of de-escalate the situation. And there was an effort there, and we can see that on video, and we've talked to that individual. But he knew he was armed. He knew Mr. Flemming was armed and was scared about how things could escalate right there in front of the patrol station. But I think he made his best effort to trying to intervene and help Mr. Flemming.
How common are suicide by cop in Sedgwick County? The case is so many common.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
How common are suicide by cop cases in Sedgwick County?
It's not very common. It does happen. We have encountered these situations before, but it is not a very common situation. Yeah. Other questions? All right. Thank you for your time today.